I guess most people are familiar with lower thirds and animated text like this, but what if you want it like this? How do you go about getting the same masking effect but in the 3D scene? Well, let's have a look. Okay, as usual, I'm going to start off with the Fusion composition. If you don't know where to find your Fusion composition, come up to the effects library at the top of the screen. Make sure your effects library is turned on, hit effects, and your Fusion composition is in there. Drag it onto your timeline. By default, mine's 8 seconds, but I only want 5, so I'll just quickly change clip duration. And we'll jump into Fusion. Now with 2D text, it's fairly straightforward. You've got your text doing whatever into your media, random text, blah blah blah. Now if we want to mask this text, if we want to animate it to sort of appear or be revealed, we just drag a rectangle and we pipe the rectangle into the mask input, the blue mask input of the text. You can now see this faint green box. This is your rectangle. So long as the text is anywhere within that box, it will be visible. So if we bring that down to the size of our text, so if we select our text and move it anywhere, if it goes beyond that box, it disappears. So that's how you'd have your text appearing. Alternatively, you can animate the rectangle itself, so you can make the text sort of reveal, and that's all fairly straightforward stuff. However, 3D stuff doesn't work that way. I'm now going to set up very quickly, I'm going to set up our 3D title. So I need a 3D text node, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to label these. To label a node, select it, press F2, and then you can change the name of it. After the 3D text node, I'm going to bring in a 3D merge node, and then I'm going to bring in a 3D render node and connect them all together. The render 3D or 3D render basically changes a 3D scene into a 2D image that you can then pipe into your output. So coming back to our text node, I'm now going to come into the inspector. I'm going to scroll down to this blank bar here. It should say extrusion, but for some reason the label's missing. Open the arrow and set some basic extrusion values. And then we can put our merge into a viewer, and we can see our text. So if we zoom in a little bit, spin it round, and we can see what we're doing. As you can see, it's shaded at the minute. That's because I have this dot at the top. It says lighting. By default it's on solid, so you don't get any shading. I just have to turn lighting on. Okay, next thing we need to do is get that looking something reasonable in this view. So to do that, we're going to bring in a couple of more nodes. We're going to bring in a camera and a spotlight. I'm going to pipe both of those into our merge, and then we're going to come to our render node and we're going to turn on lighting and shadows. At the minute you can't see anything because both the light and the camera are right up against the text here, so they can't see anything and they can't light anything. So we're going to change that. If you zoom out a little bit, first select your camera, come to your inspector, hit transform, and the first thing you're going to do, or first thing I do, is check use target. This causes the camera to consistently look at the center of the scene regardless of where the camera gets put. So now we've done that, we're going to come back up to translation and we're going to start pulling on the Z-axis until our text is kind of in view. Now I'm going to repeat that process for the spotlight. So select your spotlight, come to your inspector, hit transform, use target, and pull back on the Z-axis. Now this time, instead of going straight back, I'm also going to pull across on the X-axis so that the light comes off to the side, but because I've got use target checked, it's going to stay looking at the middle of your text, like so. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my text again, come to transform, and I'm just going to lift the Y value a bit because we're going to need a second lot of text and some kind of divider. So we'll do the second lot of text next, so we're bringing another text node. And we're going to again merge it into our scene, and this time we're going to bring in the transform the Y value down a bit so they're not overlapping. Again, we need to extrude this, so select your text, come to your text tab, down to the invisible extrude, same values, and now we've got our two lots of text. We can probably bring that down a little bit more actually, because as I say, I'm going to want to put something between them. So now we've got our text set up. Last thing we're going to set up is come up and grab a shape 3D, pipe it into our merge, and this shape 3D is going to be a cube. Again, we're going to want to zoom in, spin round so we're looking end on, and we just want to bring this cube so that it sits roughly in the middle. Unlock width, height and depth, drop your depth. Apologies for the fan noise, there's nothing I can do about it. So once we've got the right width, we're going to come, the right depth, sorry, we're going to come to height, we're going to drop the height right down. And we are going to, if I can work out which one it is, I think it's that one. Bring it up a bit so that it's in the middle, and then I'm going to increase the width so that it comes out like about there. I'm kind of not being quite as careful as I could be here. I'm just trying to get the scene set up so that it looks sort of right. Text, we can drop the size a bit, I suppose. Something around there. And then I can drag it back up a bit. So you've got something like that. Maybe drop the height on that some more. So now if we swivel our 3D scene back round, you can see what we're up to. We can maybe make that red just to break up the scene. Right. Okay, so we've got our text and our line in place. Now, to do the animations as we want, we need to somehow mask these text nodes. The easiest way to do that is to bring in a shape 3D, and we're going to drag and merge it onto our text. That creates its own merge node. Now we need to change this shape 3D to a cube, and we need to do the whole resizing to about there. We need to bring it up. I'm going to hit the transform node and I'm going to bring it up on Y, just so I can get a sense of the size. I'm going to come back to my controls and increase the width so that it covers my text, like so. Now the fancy part comes along. If you come back to your inspector and scroll down, you'll see matte. Open that and check is matte. Now you'll see our top text has disappeared behind our cube, our mask. If we move our mask up, our text reappears. The difficulty we have is that this matte affects everything, and that's not what we want. We want this matte just to affect our text, because the plan is to put the matte down here somewhere and then have the text come up from behind the matte. But as long as everything comes through this merge node, we can't do it. So what we need to do is we need to set up separate render paths for each text, and to do that we disconnect from our central merge node. We have a merge here, so what we're going to do is bring in a render 3D node and pipe that merge into it. We're going to turn on lighting and shadows, and then we're going to merge the output from this render 3D node onto our original render 3D node. Now what you see in your viewer is the default camera view of our text. What we need to do is have this text viewed from the same position as our original camera, and to do that all you do is you get another output from your camera and pop it onto your text's merge. So now this camera is being shared between these two merges. At the moment it's in darkness because it's not being lit, so the same principle, go to your spotlight, grab a second output and drop it onto text 1's merge. Now text 1 is being viewed and lit by the same camera as is lighting the original scene. Now what we can do is we can move our shape 3D wherever we want, and it doesn't affect the other text, it only affects the text that we want it to. So we can now position our matte so that our text will appear from behind it. I thought I was able to see it, but I can't. And what you can do to make position a bit easier is if you select your shape, come down to controls and just uncheck matte, and then you can see it in your viewer. So what we need to do is position that matte so that it sits just above our line, like so. And then you just go back and make it a matte again. So back to controls, is matte, and it disappears. So now our text we can control, and as it hits the line it disappears and reappears. So you can go to frame 24, you can set your text where you want it, you can keyframe your Y transition or translation, go back to frame 0, drop it down, and when you hit the play bar your text appears. You can also keyframe it back, so hit keyframe on frame 96, come to the end and drop it back down again, and that's your main text sort of animated behind a mask. Now we need to repeat the same process for our second text node. So again, we will discharge or disconnect it from our main merge. We will bring in a merge of its own. We will bring in a render 3D of its own. And we will merge this render 3D onto the end of merge 1. And now we have all our elements back on screen. Again, you're going to need to share the camera and the spotlight with it. So another output from your camera onto the merge node, and another output from your spotlight onto your merge node, and this is where your node tree starts getting a bit messy, unfortunately. So you've got your camera and your spotlight are being shared between these two merge nodes and this merge node for your shape. So we're going to mask this one in exactly the same way. So bring a shape 3D in, pipe it into the merge node for your second text, change it to a cube and resize it. We can put this merge node into the viewer so that we can see what we're doing. Spin it round and on. Bring your shape to roughly the middle. Lock or unlock height, width and depth. Drop your depth. Just reposition it so that it's, in fact we want it to be level with this. Oh, I just realised I didn't turn on lights, that's why it looks funky. Turn on lights and shadows for your second render node. So now we come back to our shape node, we come to controls and we increase the width so that it runs as wide as the text. The height doesn't really matter. So now we come down, check is matte, and again it's not affecting the other text, it's only on this render branch here. And we can now animate our second text. So come to frame 48, say, we can position our second text where we want it. So about there. Keyframe it back to 24. We can use our wheel to bring it up, make it disappear like so. Then we can come to 72 and we can set another keyframe, go to 96 and bring it back up out of the way. And then the only thing that's left to animate is your red bar, and you can have that doing whatever you want really. Shape 3D, or just have it growing as the text comes up, I think. So go to 24, come to your controls, keyframe width, go back to frame 0, drop the width. Actually we need to keyframe a couple because I think, oh no, that seems to have done the job. So now your bar will appear as your text appears. So again we can come to 96, keyframe width, come to the end, drop it down, and there you have your completed animation. Obviously you can do lots more with it. You can add followers to your text, you can mask your shape if you want. Lots of things you can do to make it different. So we'll come back to the edit tab. We'll give it a second to cache, and once it's cached we can play it through. And that's how you mask a 3D title. Hope it made sense, hope it was useful. Please feel free to subscribe, hit the like button and hit the notification bell, and I will catch you on the next one. Cheers!